It opens in Cairo, Egypt, 4 years earlier. Inside a sprawling palace that looks like it was built to intimidate, tech tycoon Nabil Sarif is already in full tyrant mode. He drags himself out of bed, samples the wellness breakfast his staff arranged like a magazine shoot, and instantly turns it into a performance, spitting out criticism with the enthusiasm of someone who enjoys being cruel. His butler rushes to explain. Sarif cuts him off and tears him down loudly, making sure the insult carries through the echoing hallways. Outside, the property is a fortress, high walls, patrols, sensors, enough security to make trespassing feel like a fairy tale. And then, the surveillance room starts to fall apart. One screen flickers. Another turns to snow. Then a third. A chain reaction of dead feeds, like someone is casually erasing the mansion's eyesight. Because Webb, the team's newest recruit and resident genius, has already wormed her way into the system. She doesn't hack so much as haunt the network. Over the comms, Shark speaks softly, like he doesn't want to spook the plan. Vision's gone. We're on. A pause, then, Wolf's at the front. Wolf saunters up to the main gate wearing the most absurd disguise imaginable, gold body paint, a fake ceremonial beard, ornate costume pieces like he wandered out of a museum diorama. He gives the guard a bright, effortless grin and delivers 2 memorized lines in formal-sounding Arabic. It's nonsense with confidence, and somehow, it works. The guard hesitates, squints, then waves him through like, sure, why not? Private tour. Meanwhile Piranha is already inside, because Piranha always is. He's crammed into a decorative indoor aquarium, cheeks puffed, half-submerged, quietly stirring the water into a controlled swirl to mask movement near a service hatch behind the filter wall. When it's Snake's moment to move, he stalls. His voice drops to a skeptical whisper. Just pointing it out, new girl is cutting the wires. One slip and we become glitter. Webb doesn't even glance up. Her fingers are a blur. She's too focused to be offended. Wolf stays calm, protective without making a big deal of it. Relax, Snake. Everybody's first run looks ugly up close. Let her work. Snake lets out an irritated breath, like agreeing physically pains him. Fine. Welcome to the circus. That's the green light. Webb wipes out the backup alarms. Again. The last warning indicator on the panel fades, and for a handful of minutes, Sarif's mansion becomes a very expensive blindfold. The crew converges in the main gallery and pushes through the doors with the swagger of people who have rehearsed this moment 100 times. Sarif appears in a silk robe, furious, offended, and fully convinced the universe exists to serve him. What is this? He snaps. Who are you supposed to be, animals? Wolf steps forward, posture shifting, hands flexing like claws are about to come out, and then he stops mid-threat. Because under a spotlight, centered like a shrine, sits Sarif's pride and joy, a one-of-one custom show car, polished so perfectly it looks unreal. Wolf stares like he's been struck by lightning. Then, very quietly, very seriously, don't touch that. Snake's face twists in disbelief. We broke into this place, for a car? Webb tilts her head, genuinely baffled. You shut down half of Cairo's cameras for a vehicle? Wolf doesn't look away. It's not a vehicle. It's proof. A message that says we can pull off the impossible, together. Sarif, suddenly smug again, folds his arms like a man showing off a trophy. It's never touched the road. Try not to exhale near it. Snake clears his throat and casually drops something into his palm, small, round, and unmistakably counting down. Sarif's expression collapses. Is that? The timer hits 0. No explosion. Instead, the room bursts with a sharp pop, a ridiculous blast of confetti, streamers, and an obnoxious little party toy squeal that somehow feels more humiliating than a bomb ever could. Wolf grins, satisfied. We don't do ugly. They punch out through a window and vanish into the night, landing not on concrete, but on a pre-planted escape cushion Webb arranged earlier, a giant inflatable decoy, absurdly shaped like Seraph's own smirking face. Sirens swell almost immediately. Police flood the streets, lights washing the alleyways blue and red. Wolf takes the wheel and drives like gravity is a flexible guideline. He slices through a narrow alley, bumps a curb, and threads past a fruit cart so cleanly not a single orange rolls. Webb grips the door handle, deadpan. Do you ever turn like a normal human being? Wolf smirks without slowing down. Only when the situation doesn't deserve style. Ahead, a squad car barrier blocks the main route, and the chase is about to get louder. Their only real way out is the bridge. Bad news, it's packed. Cars are barely crawling, horns are screaming, and every driver has turned into a spectator. Wolf uses the chaos like camouflage, edging forward inch by inch, slipping between lanes so tight Snake looks physically offended. Two police bikes try to force their way in, one clips a divider, fishtails, and wipes out in a burst of sparks. By the time they near the far end of the bridge, the cops regroup fast, cars, bikes, lights, forming a clean circle around them like a net snapping shut. A trap. Webb cranes her neck and points upward, casual as if she's calling out a menu item. There. That's our play. Ramp. Piranha goes pale and mutters a quick prayer like he's bargaining with every god at once. Wolf doesn't even blink. He lines up the approach anyway. Trust the numbers, he says right as the car hits the incline. Webb drops down from a crane hook with perfect timing, yanks a cable, and the makeshift ramp locks into place like it's been waiting for them. The car rockets up. For one suspended heartbeat, Cairo disappears beneath them. Just air. Just lights. Just the city falling away. Then, impact. They slam down hard on the other side, tires shrieking, suspension crying for help, but they keep rolling. Free. Snake finally looks at Webb like he's updating his opinion in real time. Okay. You didn't break the mission. Webb smirks, still working her tablet like it's nothing. Wow. I'll frame that. From that night forward, she's not the new girl. She's crew. Now, present day. Wolf drives a junky old car that sounds like it's powered by optimism and regret. Mid-turn, a door panel starts rattling loose. He smacks it back into place like this is a normal Tuesday. He parks, faces us, and talks like he's narrating the redemption arc he's been promised. Life was supposed to be easy, he says. We found friends in the worst places. We stopped marmalade. We turned ourselves in, and somehow shocked the world. Prison wasn't exactly a spa day, but at least they had each other. And Wolf, of all people, actually tried to level up for real. Not the flashy kind. The grown-up kind. Now they're out. Now they're trying. Jobs. Rules. Second chances. Wolf adjusts his tie like it's armor. Today's my first interview. Cut to a bank lobby, polished floors, quiet voices, the kind of place that smells like responsibility and overpriced pens. The interviewer flips through Wolf's file, eyebrow climbing higher with every page. You're applying here, at the same bank you robbed. Wolf holds a polite smile in place. 3 times. 4, Wolf corrects quickly. Technically. But, joke. That was a joke. At the next desk, Piranha proudly slides over his resume. In huge letters it basically screams, "Saved the city from a supervillain." The interviewer squints. I know you. Piranha tries to respond. His nerves betray him. He panics, and accidentally lets out the tiniest, most tragic little stress fart imaginable. His eyes go wide like he's just committed a crime again. Across the room, Webb sits perfectly composed, voice smooth, confident, terrifyingly competent. I can handle operating systems, editing tools, databases, she says. Security frameworks too. If it has a login, I can run it. The interviewer pauses, caught between impressed and alarmed. Wolf watches his team fighting to be new versions of themselves, and for the first time, the scary feeling isn't danger. It's hope. Then the interview takes a weird turn. The hiring manager taps her clipboard. So, hypothetically, if you saw a coworker violating company policy, what would you do? Piranha answers instantly. Deal with it. How? The manager asks carefully. Piranha smiles like he's proud of the plan. Hands. The manager's pen freezes. You mean, report it? Piranha leans in, deadly serious. Snitches get stitches. The silence afterward is so thick it could qualify as office furniture. Okay, the manager says, standing up way too fast. We'll contact you. They don't. One by one, the crew's fresh start collapses in humiliating ways. Shark gets rejected for intimidating presence. Tarantula gets rejected because he argued with the personality test like it insulted him personally. Snake gets rejected because he somehow offended a plant. No one knows how. Snake doesn't explain. Finally, Wolf steps forward again, straightens his collar, and forces sincerity onto his face. Let me take another shot, he says. For real. The manager stretches a smile so wide it looks painful. With your attitude? We'll have an opening very soon. We'll call. Wolf walks out glowing like he just won. 20 minutes later, he comes back, just to double-check the address, he tells himself. Totally normal. Totally casual. Through the glass, he sees the manager feeding something into a shredder. His resume. Wolf stops cold. The paper falls in thin little strips, like confetti from a celebration nobody wanted. His shoulders sink. Wolf didn't argue. He just turned and walked off, quiet as a shutdown. Back at the hideout, the vibe was worse. A pile of overdue bills sat on the table like it paid rent and everyone else didn't. Wolf tossed his keys into a bowl, pasted on a grin, and clapped once like enthusiasm was a switch. All right, he said. New day. New approach. Shark stared at the bills. Our approach is what, fasting? The TV was running a feel-good segment, rocket launch footage, proud announcers, beaming astronauts waving like heroes, swelling music doing all the emotional heavy lifting. Wolf watched a second too long. Space, he muttered. Must be great. Piranha bounced onto the couch, trying to keep it light. So, how'd the interview go, boss? Wolf snapped his hands together again, too loud, too cheerful. Amazing. Anyway, did you see the rocket? Super inspiring. Very, upward. Tarantula leaned back with that smug, therapist who hates you posture. You're dodging. Wolf's smile stiffened. I'm not dodging. I'm redirecting the conversation toward positivity. Tarantula pointed at Piranha like he had receipts. If we're talking positivity, his interview was a catastrophe. I'm pretty sure the manager hit an alarm. Piranha's head whipped around. That is not true. Snake, half asleep in his chair, raised one finger like he was presenting a footnote. It was a silent alarm. Wolf lifted both hands. Okay. Okay. Life throws obstacles. He nodded like a motivational calendar. But we're still moving forward. Shark grunted. Forward into what? The news is calling us criminals again. Wolf blinked. What are you talking about? Shark grabbed the remote and cranked the volume. On screen, security footage. A shadowy figure flipping over laser grids with unnecessary flair, sliding under beams like it was choreography, then lifting three priceless artifacts like they were party favors. The reporter practically glowed with excitement, and in the latest theft, the anchor said, authorities were shocked to discover a calling card left for the public. A velvet case opened on camera. Pop. A blast of glitter and paper streamers erupted straight into the presenter's face. Someone screamed. Someone else started coughing confetti. The studio became a craft store explosion. Wolf's expression collapsed. "That's," he breathed. "That's ours," Tarantula finished, horrified. The headline screamed across the screen, "Phantom Bandit strikes again, is the infamous crew back?" A street reporter appeared next, vibrating with certainty. "And sources say the culprit is obvious, especially after witnesses pointed out Wolf's new hairstyle." Wolf's eyes narrowed. "My, what?" Cut to a press conference, the police chief at microphones, jaw set like stone. "This has their fingerprints all over it," he snapped. "Metaphorically. Let's pray not literally." Wolf watched in silence, jaw tight enough to crack glass. Miss Tarantula exhaled through her teeth. "How are we supposed to become better people if the world keeps insisting we're the same monsters?" That's when the door opened. Snake walked in smiling. Not a normal smile, too wide, too forced, like his face had forgotten the settings and guessed. The room went still. Piranha whispered, "Why does he look shiny?" Snake waved like a kindergarten teacher. "Hi, friends." Everyone recoiled in unison. Wolf squinted. "Are you ill?" Snake's grin grew even bigger. "Nope. I'm choosing happiness." Shark leaned toward Wolf, urgent. "Call a doctor." Snake grabbed his jacket, still humming like a man possessed by wholesome energy. "Don't wait up. I'm going to wrestling night. Gotta release some positive vibes." And he left, humming louder. Nobody spoke for a beat. Then Tarantula said calmly, "We're all going to die." Wolf needed air. And answers. He went to see Diane. He unloaded everything, the interviews crashing, the rejection spiral, the city pointing fingers again, the copycat thief stealing their signature, confetti and all. When he finally ran out of words, Diane studied him for a moment and nodded. "I'm glad you're still trying," she said. Wolf let out a sound that wanted to be a laugh, but couldn't commit. "Trying feels like getting hit in slow motion." She softened. "When we first met, I thought you were, a lot." Wolf's mouth tilted. "A lot of charm? A lot of ego. Fair." He looked down at his hands. "Every no takes another bite out of the hope." Diane leaned back. "It's easier for me to stay good when nobody knows what I used to be." Wolf's eyes flicked up. "Yeah. Must be nice." A quiet beat. Then Diane bumped him with her shoulder. "Come on. Train with me. You're wound up." Wolf's face brightened, grateful for anything that wasn't a news anchor. "Training? That I can do." They sparred, gentle at first, then quicker. Diane moved like a professional. Wolf tried to pretend he wasn't impressed. Then, thunk. Wolf caught a clean hit, stumbled back, and winced. Diane paused immediately. "Are you okay?" Wolf rubbed his arm, forcing bravado through pain. "Incredible." Wolf winced and rolled his shoulder. "Perfect," he muttered. "Nothing sells reliable employee like a brand new bruise." Diane's mouth twitched, she almost smiled, like she was trying not to let the moment soften. For half a second, everything felt quieter. Warmer. Wolf stepped closer, words lining up behind his teeth. "You know, Diane lifted a hand immediately. Firm, but not cruel. "Don't." They both exhaled like they'd been holding their breath for the same reason. "Governor," Wolf said, aiming for playful. "Ex-con," Diane shot back. "Right," Wolf replied. Exactly, she said, still gentle, even when the truth stung. Before it could turn into something more complicated, an assistant appeared at the doorway. Governor Foxington, the children's hospital appearance begins shortly. Diane's face shifted into leadership mode in an instant. She grabbed her coat, then hesitated in place. Same time next week? She asked. Wolf's smile returned, smaller and more honest. Yeah. My calendar's extremely available. She held his gaze. Don't give up. Give your crew something solid to believe in. Once you do, everything else starts to move. Then she smirked, because she can't help herself. And also? Your left hook is tragic. Wolf chuckled. I'll fix it. As he headed out, a TV in the lobby caught his eye, an interview clip playing with Officer Grunes, now sporting a fresh insignia on her uniform like she'd just leveled up. Wolf paused. Watched. Thought. Then something clicked. Public trust, he murmured. That's the battlefield. At police headquarters, Commander Grunes paced her office like walking faster could make the problem smaller. She rearranged folders, shifted photos, straightened stacks, anything to feel in control. This needs to be solved, she muttered. And it needs to be solved yesterday. A junior officer cracked the door. Ma'am? Your visitor is here. Grunes frowned. I didn't schedule. She stepped into the meeting room and stopped dead. Wolf stood politely with his hands visible, posture careful, like he'd read How Not to Get Tossed, a beginner's guide. Hello, Commander, he said. Grunes narrowed her eyes so hard they could sharpen steel. What are you doing here? Behind her, an evidence board had been shifted out of place. She crossed the room and yanked it back like the wall had insulted her family. Wolf swallowed. I think I can help. Grunes let out one short laugh, empty of humor. You? Help? Wolf stayed steady. Someone's setting us up. And if you're hunting the Phantom Bandit, Grunes turned slowly. How do you know that name? Wolf hesitated, then lowered his voice. Because he's using our signature. And the city's going to blame the wrong people until somebody stops him. Grunes stared at him, anger, suspicion, and a sliver of reluctant interest wrestling behind her eyes. Talk, she snapped. But understand this, one lie, and you're finished. Wolf nodded. Fair. He drew in a breath, and laid it out. He told her the deal was simple, she wanted the case closed. He wanted to prove he wasn't just what the headlines called him. If the city was ever going to accept them as reformed, they had to catch the real thief. Grunes considered looping in Diane immediately, but Wolf didn't fight it. If anything, he encouraged it, because the idea had started with Diane in the first place. They dug into the pattern behind the robberies and found the thread. Right before every heist, the security system got compromised. Someone didn't just break in, they opened the door from the inside. To trace where the intrusions were coming from, they needed someone who could read a hacked system like a bedtime story. So they went to Miss Tarantula. She reviewed what they had, cool and clinical, then delivered the verdict: this isn't one hacker freelancing for fun. There's a second layer here. Somebody on site. An inside hand. Next they brought in Shark, who immediately pointed out something everyone else missed, that nobody, in the building, the janitor, wasn't as invisible as he looked. He was part of the operation. But Shark wasn't satisfied. He's not the whole team, he said. There's still one more person you haven't found. Then Piranha gave his piece of the puzzle, because of course he had been watching the dumbest detail and somehow it mattered. The guy who grabbed the device? Piranha said. He came through the vents. I know because he smelled like vents. He paused, frowning like he was reliving something traumatic. And also, he added, disgusted, he was super grossed out by Grunes's food. Grunes blinked. What? Piranha nodded firmly. Your food. It offended him. And weirdly enough, that narrowed the suspect list more than anyone wanted to admit. Once the pieces start lining up, Groons, dripping with her usual sarcasm, leans back and goes, so why don't we call another expert? Naturally, they try Snake. Nothing. No pickup. No text. Not even a lazy voicemail greeting. Which is weird, because Snake is usually the most reachable person alive, so calm he could meditate through an earthquake. That peace and love reputation throws Groons off. She expected someone with his history to be, less zen. While that's happening, Wolf notices something about the stolen artifacts. The thief didn't just grab random valuables. Only 3 of the items have the same unusual detail. They're made with a rare metal called MacGuffinite. That's the pattern. Now they don't just know what happened. They know what the Phantom Bandit is collecting. And once you know what someone wants, guessing the next target becomes a math problem. Groons decides she's done entertaining ex-cons in her office and boots them out. But as they're leaving, the crew stumbles onto the biggest clue yet. The largest known concentration of MacGuffinite on Earth is in a single object, the championship belt of Guatemala, scheduled to be awarded that very night at the big wrestling event. And suddenly the room temperature mystery becomes a 5-alarm problem, because Snake was supposed to be at that exact event. They joke about it at first, because that's how they avoid panicking, but then the thought lands harder: what if Snake is involved? The heists all happened during the exact same hour Snake kept claiming he was working. If the cops connect those dots, Snake doesn't get a slap on the wrist, he goes straight back to jail. Then Groons calls him. And here's the twist: she's in a good mood. That's how you know the universe is about to be cruel. She basically warns him, cheerful as a weather report, that the Phantom Bandit is expected to hit tonight. Shark hears this and instantly short-circuits. He tosses the phone like it's contaminated. Wolf says they should go save their friend. Piranha, on the other hand, suggests they should dismantle him like a betrayal piñata. The argument lasts about 5 seconds before the truth wins: whether Snake is guilty or not, they can't let him get taken. So they all head for the arena. At the stadium, the annual champ, El Guapo, is bulldozing challengers like it's a hobby. The crowd is insane. The moment the crew arrives, their already broken car takes another hit, scraped, dented, and disrespected by the universe. Inside, the place is chaos in the best way: food stalls, flashy cars on display, people dressed like wrestling gods, and enough neon to power a small city. And yes, Groons is there too. She spots them and flashes a grin like she's thrilled they came around. Shark responds by knocking her out cold. No hesitation. One clean hit. They stash her unconscious in a restroom like they're temporarily filing her away, and the team goes hunting for Snake. They find him. They pounce. Full group tackle. And then they realize Snake isn't alone, because standing right there is Susan, and the 2 of them are being disgustingly affectionate. Like, public romance with no shame, affectionate. Miss Tarantula squints and, in complete sincerity, assumes Susan is his lunch. Snake immediately clears it up. She's my girlfriend. The crew explodes. They roast him instantly, because Snake having a girlfriend is apparently the most unbelievable plot twist of the century. But Susan isn't confused. She knows exactly who they are. And she's not running. Back in the ring, El Guapo wins again. The referee steps forward with the belt, and a new wrestler enters. Wolf's eyes narrow. Something about the timing, the posture, the energy, it hits him like a warning siren: this isn't a challenger. This is the Phantom Bandit in costume. The moment she moves toward El Guapo, the crew jumps in to stop her. A confrontation spills into the spotlight. Masks get grabbed. The disguise comes off. Wolf tries to save the crowd from being fooled. He shouts that she's here to steal the belt, but the pig-faced wrestler flips the narrative instantly, smooth as oil. In seconds, she turns Wolf into the villain in everyone's eyes without even breaking a sweat. Piranha lunges for the belt anyway. Bad idea. Wrestlers, fans, security, everybody piles onto him like he's the threat. Total mayhem. Grunes wakes up just in time to see Piranha sprinting and the belt disappearing, and the look on her face is pure betrayal. To her, it's confirmation, the reformed crew is lying. Now they're not suspects. They're targets. Cornered and swarmed, the crew is seconds from getting dogpiled, until Susan steps in and helps them break out. They escape, barely. A wild chase follows, and by the end of it Grunes goes nuclear. She issues warrants and gives her officers the kind of order that means no restraint. Bring them in. Any way necessary. Cut away, the pig wrestler checks in with her boss, pleased as punch. The plan worked perfectly. While the police chase the wrong people, Wolf finally realizes how deep the trap goes, and how far they've been pushed. Meanwhile, Susan starts earning the crew's trust in the only way that works with them, proving she's useful when things get ugly. And once the dust settles, Susan and Snake start telling the story of how they met. A few months earlier, they bumped into each other on a bus, and somehow discovered they shared the same weird craving, guinea pig. It's romantic in the most cursed way possible. They finish the story and then kiss like they're trying to traumatize everyone in the room. The crew reacts exactly as you'd expect, full-body disgust. Susan starts describing their first date and the whole crew immediately panics. Please, no, Tarantula begs. We're still recovering from the bus story. Wolf cuts in, trying to steer the room back to reality. Focus. We have a crisis. We're wanted, framed, and one bad headline away from living in a sewer. Snake smirks and points at Wolf like he's solved a mystery. He's acting like this because the governor put him in the friend zone. Wolf shoots him a look. I'm acting like this because we're going to jail. Cut to a press conference. Diane stands at the podium, calm and composed while reporters fire questions like darts. Someone asks the obvious, is she going to authorize warrants for the crew? Diane doesn't answer. Instead, her phone buzzes with an unknown number. She steps away, picks up, and her expression shifts the second she hears the voice. Wolf, she says quietly. What's happening? Wolf doesn't play games. He tells her the truth, they didn't steal the belt, the Phantom Bandit staged it, and now the entire city thinks the crew is back to being monsters. We need you, he admits. Badly. Diane's voice stays steady. Give me something. One detail that helps me help you. Wolf thinks fast and drops a clue, the treasures of Megaponita, the thread that connects the MacGuffinite pattern. He can't risk meeting. For now, he has to stay underground. Diane tells him she'll go speak to someone who knows about that mineral, someone who can confirm what it is and why it matters. Wolf exhales, grateful. Thank you. They hang up. Diane turns back to her staff like she's already made a decision. I'm going to see Marmalade. Back at the hideout, the crew is out cold. All of them. Wolf blinks awake first, confused, trying to figure out what hit them. That's when Susan appears, calm as a bedtime nurse. And before Wolf can finish a sentence, she sticks him too. Sedative. His vision slurs. His body goes heavy. As he fades, he hears her speaking, soft, professional, reporting into someone on the other end. When the crew wakes up, it's bad. Tied up. Gagged. Trapped like a set of angry furniture. A figure steps into view, the Phantom Bandit, and she starts performing like she's on stage, voice rich with drama. Once upon a time, she says, there was a fearless wolf. Wolf glares, furious. She smiles and finally drops the act. Name's Kitty Cat. And of course she didn't come alone. Pigtails steps out next. Then Susan, except she's not Susan. Kitty tilts her head. Call her Shadow. Snake's face cracks. You can literally watch his heart break in real time as he realizes the whole relationship was a con. Every sweet moment, every look, every kiss, fake. He swallows hard and admits it anyway, devastated. She was perfect for me. The others stare at him like he just confessed to eating trash. Because from their angle, perfect is not the word. Wolf forces his voice steady. What do you want from us? Kitty gets cheerful, like she's pitching an investment opportunity. A job. A big one. The kind that doesn't happen without specialists. She needs pros. People with rare skills. People who can pull off something impossible. So she offers them one last gig. Wolf refuses instantly. The crew backs him up, they've changed. They're not doing crime again. They're trying to be good. Kitty laughs at that, then her tone turns sharp. She casually mentions she loves red lollipops, like it's a quirky detail. Then she adds, almost conversational, sometimes people aren't who they claim to be. And that's when the real threat hits. Because Kitty already knows Diane's secret. She knows Diane is the Scarlet Claw. If that gets out, Diane's life detonates. Scandal. Ruin. Everything she rebuilt, gone. Kitty leans in with the blackmail nice and clean, help with the job, or Diane's secret goes public. Wolf's jaw tightens. He has no room left to maneuver. So he says yes. Kitty shows them the target, and it's insane, they're stealing the rocket. Not a car. Not a diamond. A rocket. Out of choices, the crew agrees. It's either cooperate or destroy Diane. Piranha's eyes widen behind the gag like he's asking the universe for a refund. When they're finally able to speak, he blurts, so, does this mean we're bad guys again? Wolf's face hardens. Yeah. Then he adds, colder, Kitty planned this like a genius, but she forgot one tiny thing. He looks straight ahead, promise in his voice, when this is over, she's going to regret threatening us. Meanwhile, in prison, Diane demands to see Marmalade. When he arrives, he's changed, leaner, styled up, weirdly comfortable in the way only a villain with a routine can be. He greets her like this is a scheduled hangout. What do you need? He asks, acting like he doesn't already know the city's chaos outside. His prison life is absurdly cushy. He's basically doing villain wellness. Diane doesn't waste time. Tell me what you know about MacGuffinit. Marmalade smiles. Oh, I know plenty. Then he asks for something in return. At first, it sounds like he's about to demand freedom, classic move. But no. He leans forward, delighted. All I want, is to play. Diane's expression tightens. Because of course it's not simple. And as Kitty's plan accelerates, she starts distributing gear to each member of the crew, tools tailored to their skills, like she's outfitting them for the most expensive mistake of her life. For Wolf and Piranha, the gear handout feels like a joke, everyone else gets slick tools and specialized tech, and they're left holding two bizarre costumes that look like they were designed by a sleep-deprived theater kid. Then Kitty drops the actual twist, Wolf and Piranha aren't going anywhere near the launch site. Because the launch zone is basically a military-level fortress, and there's only one shortcut through all that security, Jeremiah Moon's watch. Moon runs the whole space program, and his watch is the key, access, clearances, identity verification, the whole thing. Steal the watch, and you can steal the rocket. Problem, Moon never removes it. But Kitty found a crack in the armor, Moon is attending a high-profile invite-only wedding. Miss Tarantula lights up like she just got handed a puzzle box. Kitty lays it out, private guest list, walls of security, and just enough chaos potential to slip a blade between the ribs of the system. Shark goes in posing as a florist. Shadow slides in disguised as waitstaff. And Kitty adds one more annoying detail: Moon wears these absurd, status glasses that tell him who's worth his time. If the glasses flag you as important, you get exactly 30 seconds of conversation with him. So the whole plan becomes, get flagged, get close, get the watch. And the operation begins. Piranha handles the first layer: security distraction, crowd control, keeping eyes pointed the wrong way. Snake works a brutal lock and narrates it like a romance novel. Lockpicking is like flirting, he mutters. Start simple, then you hit the defenses, then everything melts if you're patient. Once the powered security is dealt with, Pigtails slips in dressed as a technician, clipboard, headset, the whole "I belong here" posture. Miss Tarantula hijacks the system from inside, crawling through the network like it's her natural habitat. Finally, Wolf enters the party in full character, a fake tycoon persona, Billy Lovato, smile polished, confidence weaponized, as if he's never heard the word parole. Miss Tarantula tampers with Moon's glasses, nudging the algorithm so Wolf pops up as high value. One by one, the crew confirms their pieces are locked in place. Now all Wolf has to do is shake hands and steal a watch. Easy. Except, the universe hates them. Because Snake and Shadow start flirting like they forgot they're in the middle of a mission, and Shadow, trying to play it cool, fumbles and drops her weapon straight onto the bride's head. Bonk. Bride down. Out cold. Wedding guests screaming. Staff panicking. The plan instantly catches fire. Meanwhile, Wolf actually manages to charm Moon. He pitches a partnership idea: space meets money, classic rich person delusion. Moon likes it. They clasp hands. And that's when a familiar problem walks in, the smug billionaire from earlier, Seraph, showing up like an unwanted sequel. Wolf tries to stay invisible, but the vibe shifts. Moon has to step away. Time window closing. Kitty corners Wolf the moment she can, furious. Are you tanking my operation on purpose? Then Shark appears with the bride, and she's not just unconscious. She's fully sedated. And to make it worse, the priest steps in, and Shark drops him too. At this point, the heist isn't a heist anymore. It's a public meltdown with catering. Kitty turns on Wolf, voice low and dangerous. Wolf swears through clenched teeth that he'll fix it, he'll get the watch, no matter what it takes. Then the wedding tries to restart. The bride finally appears. Miss Tarantula is practically vibrating with excitement. And Wolf walks in wearing the bridal gown. Yes. That's the play. Moon, completely fooled, looks at the bride and says warmly, "You look beautiful." But the disaster isn't done. Seraph recognizes Wolf. He pauses, suspicious, and then decides to ruin everything. Mid-ceremony, Shark pops up again, now pretending to be the priest like this is a community theater production from hell. Seraph cuts the ceremony and tells Moon the truth, that Billy Lovato is actually Wolf. He yanks the veil off, and realizes he's been outplayed. Because at some point, Moon swapped places with Wolf. The switch was so clean Seraph doesn't even notice until it's too late. End result, Moon gets thrown out of his own fancy event for causing a disturbance, while the crew slips away with the prize. Kitty, impressed despite herself, asks Wolf how he pulled it off. Wolf breaks it down like a teacher at the world's worst masterclass: 3 steps. Set the bait. Get Seraph convinced Wolf is present and dangerous. Flip the story. Make Seraph suspect the wrong person, turn the bride into the fake. Take the prize. Walk everyone through the lie until they're escorting the wrong man out, and the watch is already gone. That's how they escaped. Meanwhile, back in prison, Marmalade is still playing games with Diane, who looks like she's regretting every life choice that led her to this conversation. Marmalade lectures like he's hosting a villain TED Talk: it's all brains, strategy, and the art of staying 2 moves ahead. He's delighted that the governor is visiting to chat about magnetic terraforming, as if this is a normal Tuesday. Then he finally explains MacGuffin it. It's basically the anti-gold, worthless to most people until you apply extreme voltage. Then it becomes something else entirely, a powerful magnet tuned to pull gold like it's on a leash. Marmalade smirks. Why rob a bank, he says, when you can make the gold come to you? Diane thanks him and turns to leave, and that's when Marmalade adds one last needle. Oh, by the way, you weren't the only visitor. Someone else came to see him days ago. Diane's eyes sharpen. She checks the older surveillance logs, rewinds the footage, and follows the breadcrumb trail, and finally learns where Kitty has been hiding. They track it down, Kitty's hideout. Her base. Her little, villain clubhouse. Pigtails, meanwhile, is weirdly quiet. She's not hyped like before, she's gloomy. Because she knows what comes after a final job. People disappear. Teams split. And even if nobody says it out loud, she's pretty sure this is the part where they all stop being in each other's lives. Elsewhere, Shadow pulls Snake aside and tries to smooth things over. Don't stay mad, she says. It was a con. It had to be. They both act like it's nothing, like neither of them caught feelings, until they keep talking and accidentally admit the obvious, they do like each other. The vibe is complicated, messy, and way too real for 2 people who started as enemies. Wolf sits down with Kitty, and she doesn't bother pretending she's innocent. She straight up explains it, the only way to drag him back into the game was to frame him. Force the city to chase him, force him to move, force him to become active again. Retirement wasn't an option, she needed him useful. Now that she's gotten what she wanted, she's ready to hand over the USB. But first, she decides to tell him a story, because villains love a "this is why I'm like this" monologue. Her first theft wasn't diamonds or art. It was a lollipop. Back in school, the teacher only rewarded the good kids with candy. Kitty was never one of them. Always left watching someone else get the sweet prize. So one day, when nobody was looking, she took every lollipop. And the moment she had them all, something clicked. If people wanted what she had, they had to come to her. That was the first time she felt power. Real power. She tells Wolf the rest came naturally after that, bigger heists, bigger respect, a reputation that made people step aside when she walked into a room. Then she studies him like he's a confusing math problem. Why would you ever give that up, she asks. To her, Wolf's new life mindset is childish. People don't forget. They don't forgive. You can apologize forever and still get treated like the monster you used to be. She leans in, sweet and poisonous at the same time. Stop chasing hope. Just enjoy the lollipop. It lands. It makes Wolf think. But he still stands up and walks away. Later, when the crew reunites, Wolf asks the key question, did you get it? Did we record her confession? They did. The plan is simple now, take the recording to Groons, prove Kitty framed them, and finally clear their name. But Wolf isn't celebrating. He's distant. His friends notice. Push him. He admits what's gnawing at him. What if we chose wrong, he says quietly. What if we took the wrong path? The crew shuts that down fast. They remind him this is how they win their lives back, turn the city's hatred into respect, become the heroes, get real futures. They pile into the car, ready to move. And it doesn't start. Because of course it doesn't. Out of gas. And that's when the bad girls appear. Kitty and her crew step out like they've been waiting for the punchline, and suddenly the whole "we're in control" vibe flips. They chain the guys up, literally, with golden restraints like they're wrapping them in irony. Then they reveal the real plan. The MacGuffin it isn't just a collectible. It's the core ingredient. They're going to send it into space, hit it with massive voltage, and turn it into a planet-scale magnet, one that will pull gold like it's being summoned. The biggest heist in history. And for the grand finale? They're going to leak Diane's secret to the world and burn down the life she built. The trap is cruelly perfect. The only way to stop the leak is to hit a button, except that button also triggers the magnet. So if Wolf's crew tries to save Diane, they help Kitty rob the planet. If they stop the heist, Diane gets exposed. Either way, Kitty wins. They're forced to sit there chained up until the cops arrive, because Kitty wants the police to catch them, to lock them away, and to make sure nobody ever believes them again. And now it's clear, this betrayal wasn't improvisation. It was the plan all along. Because days earlier, Kitty had secretly met with Marmalade in prison, and together they cooked up the whole thing, framing, blackmail, rocket, magnet, the works. Shadow calls the cops as part of the setup, and Snake, heartbreakingly, still can't stop caring about her. But the crew isn't done. They grab the USB, desperate to get the confession loaded before everything collapses. Problem: it keeps buffering, loading at the worst possible time, like technology has joined the villains. Inside the facility, Red, Miss Tarantula, tries to hack the system and fails. The countdown screaming at them. 4 seconds left. Wolf makes a last-ditch call: throw the laptop into the forge. Destroy it. They try, except it won't drop in time. And then the video finishes loading. Fully. Right on schedule for maximum pain. Groons arrives, ready to arrest them, absolutely convinced the crew is guilty. Meanwhile Kitty and the others rush the rocket, but Diane is already there. She plants herself in their way like a wall. Because she knew. She's been tracking the plan, and she's not backing down. She fights them, takes them down, and declares them under arrest. Kitty laughs in her face. You really think that matters? You think the video isn't already out? And then it hits. Everyone knows. Diane's phone starts exploding with messages. Alerts. Notifications. The internet ignites. Suspicion spreads like wildfire. The news breaks: Diane Foxington is the Scarlet Claw. And right in the chaos, someone nails Diane with a tranquilizer dart. She stumbles, barely conscious, but still forces herself onto the rocket because the mission is bigger than her pride now. Meanwhile, the public story twists into something ugly. Marmalade gets released, smiling like he's won, while the bad girls end up in custody, and the city still doesn't know who to trust. Wolf tries to plead with Groons. He tries to make her see the truth. But she doesn't. Not yet. Then the rocket activates. The worst-case scenario starts to become real. And just when it feels like the end, Groons finally makes the choice that matters most. She puts her faith back in them. The crew piles in around Groons, half hug, half frantic briefing, and they unload everything at once: Kitty, the framing job, the rocket, the magnet plan, all of it. And like the universe has perfect comedic timing, the rocket ignites right as they're talking. No more debate. No more maybe. The bad girls sprint for the launch. Groons turns to Wolf and the crew, voice hard but weirdly honest. When this is over, you're still going to jail. Wolf nods like he expected nothing else. Fair. He thanks her anyway, because at least someone finally listened. Then the crew charges in after the villains, fighting uphill. The alarms are howling, doors are locking, lights are flashing. They're yanking on an access hatch while the bad girls move like they own the place. Jeremiah Moon shows up at the facility, chaos unfolding around him, just as the villain's rocket reaches the station and the plan keeps rolling forward. Up there, the first thing everyone learns is, climbing around in open air without proper gear is, in fact, a terrible idea. It's freezing, brutal, and immediately uncomfortable. Then they watch Pigtails assemble the device, MacGuffin it rigged with energy cells, turning it into the thing Marmalade described, a magnet that doesn't pull paperclips, it pulls wealth. Once the mechanism is ready, the crew finally has a real counterplan. They suit up. Everyone's scared, even if they pretend they're not. Roles get assigned: Miss Tarantula plus Shark, hack the station systems and get control back. Piranha plus Snake, shut down the power feeding the MacGuffin it build. Wolf, handle Kitty. They split. Miss Tarantula marches off with Shark like she's the commander now. Shark nods like he understands, even though he clearly has no clue what she's saying. He's just trusting the vibe. Snake tries to calm Piranha. Don't freak out. Piranha tries not to, then immediately starts nervous farting in his helmet, which is a punishment no suit should have to endure. Then the magnet powers up. And it hits the world like a nightmare update. Rich people everywhere get blasted with notifications. The sky becomes impossible. Gold starts lifting, jewelry, bars, vault stockpiles, rising like it has gravity in reverse. Down on Earth, cities start getting shredded by a literal gold storm. And Marmalade, because of course, launches himself in a ridiculous gold ride, racing toward space like he's late for an award ceremony. Up on the station, Wolf slips in as the gold begins piling and swirling. The sight is insane, like the universe is being vacuumed. Piranha panics. Snake starts drifting. The bad girls spot them. Snake floats out of control, helpless and weightless. Shadow calls out to him, torn. Stop. I don't want to hurt you. But Kitty doesn't hesitate. She throws a punch into Wolf and snarls that the plan continues no matter who gets crushed under it. She cranks the magnet higher. The chaos escalates. Gold slams into buildings, tears through streets, turns the world into a disaster reel. Kitty is practically glowing with victory. Wolf, bruised and grim, calls her out, calmly, almost politely, like he's trying to talk someone down from a ledge. He even hits her with a weird little observation, like his brain is buffering under stress. Sometimes gold sounds like a made-up word if you say it enough. Then he asks her to shut it down. Or he will. Kitty laughs and fights him for control of the switch. They grapple, slipping and slamming into panels while alarms scream. During the fight, she digs into him. Why risk everything for people who never gave him a real chance? When he was feared, at least he mattered. Now he's a punchline. Wolf snaps back, what she's calling respect was never respect. It was fear. Respect, he tells her, is earned. And he says, quietly, that he hopes one day she understands the difference. Kitty goes for the controls and smashes the switch, but Wolf's true move was never to turn it off. It was to take Moon's watch. Because the watch isn't just access. It's command. And once Wolf has it, he triggers an emergency sequence that lets him use the rocket itself. Piranha, desperate, does something insane. He pops a tiny hole in his suit to blast himself forward like a human thruster, just to reach where he needs to be. And Wolf pilots the rocket straight into the MacGuffin device like he's aiming a spear. Impact. The magnet breaks. The gold loses its unnatural pull and rains back down toward Earth like the world is exhaling again. At the last second, Shadow saves Snake, pulls him back from drifting into death, and Snake finally admits what he's been refusing to say out loud, he feels it too. Kitty screams, furious, because now the plan is shattered and they're stranded. How are we getting back to Earth? Then she snaps, grabs Wolf by the throat, ready to end him. And Diane, still groggy from the tranquilizer but refusing to stay down, steps in and stops her. Wolf sees Diane and doesn't even pretend to be cool. He pulls her into a hug like he's been holding that fear for hours. And then, she kisses him. Wolf blinks, stunned, and manages a joke through the emotion. What happened to the just friends rule? Diane's voice is soft but certain. I'm not governor anymore. I can bend the rules. The crew reacts like it's the best news they've heard all year. Everyone piles in, one of those ridiculous group hugs that's half celebration, half relief. Even Pigtails and Shadow step closer, hovering at the edge of it, almost part of it. And then the station starts coming apart. Metal groans. Lights die. Pieces shear away. They're falling. Earth is rushing up. For a moment, they all accept it, this bitter, unfair ending. But Wolf isn't ready to quit. He starts looking for a way out, smash cut. A funeral. A heartfelt send-off. The world finally accepts them, because of course that's when people get brave, when it costs nothing. The punchline lands, the only survivors are the ones who were technically the villains who started it. Then the real reveal. Groons walks into her office. And it turns out the crew is alive. Not only alive, recruited. After everything, after all the distrust, Groons decides to give them a shot under strict control. She lays it out, they're going to work as agents for an international protective organization, basically secret ops do-gooders with criminal skill sets. Groons congratulates them. They're not fugitives anymore. They're secret agents. I'll be honest, the marketing had me skeptical. The trailers weren't totally landing for me. They made it look like the sequel's whole pitch was, remember those bad guys? Now they're not bad. And the way the bad girls were introduced in the previews felt a little like the movie was saying, look. New characters. Please clap. It came off forced. But after watching it, I can say this pretty confidently, the trailers kinda sold the wrong vibe. Because the bad guys too is, first and foremost, more bad guys. If you liked what the first movie brought to the table, the slick heist energy, the spyish setups, the banter, the surprisingly heartfelt character beats, this sequel basically shows up with a bigger plate of the same meal, and adds a few extra spices. The good guys now worry, and why it actually works. My biggest concern going in was the obvious one, if the bad guys are trying to be legitimate now, does that drain the fun? Like, is the sequel going to feel like it's forcing a continuation when the original already wrapped things up nicely? Thankfully, no. The story takes a direction that makes their trying to be good era feel useful, not just moral window dressing. It creates tension, it creates obstacles, and it gives the plot a reason to exist beyond, let's do the same thing again. In fact, weirdly enough, I'm now glad the sequel commits to them being on the other side of the law, because it opens up a totally different set of problems than the first film had. And now I'm at the point where I'm like, yeah, I want more of this. Not in a milk it forever way, but in a this could genuinely be DreamWorks' next franchise lane way. These characters can support a bunch of story styles, globe-trotting capers, undercover missions, rival crews, personal backstory arcs, betrayals, big ensemble stuff, the whole buffet. And since there are books to pull from, it feels like the runway is already there. It's a movie you can absolutely watch, enjoy, and then continue on with your day without it haunting your thoughts in the best way. Also, while I love the villains and I like the setup a lot, I did have one lingering question. What exactly is the long-term endgame? The movie lays groundwork and builds momentum well, but once I zoomed out and thought, okay, but if they actually win, then what? I got a little confused. Not enough to ruin it, but enough that it made the master plan feel slightly foggier than it probably should. Overall verdict still, the big takeaway is simple: if you liked the first Bad Guys, you'll probably really like this one. It's more of what worked: heists, espionage flavor, comedy, character chemistry, but with stronger villains and higher stakes. And even with a couple of nitpicks, I'm leaving this sequel more excited than I expected to be. I want to see what future installments look like, because this series has the kind of cast dynamic that can carry multiple movies without feeling tired, if they keep giving them fresh challenges. Quick cast shout-out: voice performances. The movie's anchored by Sam Rockwell as Wolf, still the leader of the crew, now trying to live on the right side of things, even though the world isn't exactly lining up to forgive his past. Zazie Beetz is back as Diane, and in this one she's stepped into a bigger public role as governor. What's interesting is she's also carrying a quiet secret. She's got a past too, but most people don't know that part of her story. And across the board, the voice cast keeps the energy snappy. Everyone sounds like they're having fun, which matters a lot for a movie like this. So yeah, funny, stylish, higher stakes, excellent villains, and, for me, just a touch better than the original, even if it doesn't stick to my brain like superglue. If this becomes DreamWorks' next big franchise, I wouldn't be mad at it at all. A fresh wave of high-profile robberies hits the city just as the bad guys are trying to stay on the straight and narrow after getting out of prison. Police Chief Alex isn't buying their reformed act for a second, especially when the mysterious phantom bandit starts swiping rare artifacts and leaving taunting clues that conveniently make Sam and the crew look guilty. To clear their names, the team makes a risky deal. They'll crack the case quietly for Commissioner Luggins before the public turns on them again. Even Governor Diane, Crimson Paw Foxington agrees to help, though her support comes with conditions, and trust doesn't come easy when everyone remembers their past. Then the real complication arrives. Danielle, the sharp, fearless boss of a new all-girl crime crew, corners the bad guys with leverage they can't ignore. Instead of turning them in, she forces them into one last job. A slick, high-stakes heist with a twist. The target isn't just valuable, it's connected to the Phantom Bandits' endgame. Now Sam's crew has to walk a tightrope, prove they're innocent, survive the blackmail, and stop a criminal who's always one step ahead, without falling back into the very habits they're trying to escape. As a sequel, The Bad Guys 2 keeps the spirit of the original alive, fast, funny, and packed with kinetic set pieces. The animation remains a standout, bold, vibrant, and bursting with comic book attitude, blending heist movie cool with punchy, expressive reactions that give it a distinct, energetic style. The pacing moves like a runaway train, in a good way, the action scenes stay inventive, and the soundtrack adds extra swagger to the whole ride. The real secret sauce, though, is the group chemistry. Their banter, teamwork, and genuine affection for each other keep the story warm even when the plot goes full throttle. There's also a satisfying undercurrent about trust, second chances, and identity, how hard it is to change when the world keeps demanding you be the person you used to be. It isn't a radical reinvention. Some beats will feel familiar if you loved the first movie, and I still found myself wanting the franchise to aim for slightly bigger emotional stakes and character growth. But as a crowd-pleasing sequel, it absolutely delivers, funny, stylish, and consistently entertaining for families. Rating, 8 out of 10, not groundbreaking, but it's a confident, high-energy follow-up with plenty of charm and a few smart new twists. It's stylish, it's slick, and the visuals perfectly match the film's tone and atmosphere. From the very first frame to the final shot, it's a genuine pleasure to watch, gliding through a familiar but fun story at full speed without ever feeling messy, breathless, or like it skipped a beat. It's the kind of movie that sweeps you up and doesn't let go, firing off exciting set pieces, snappy comedic exchanges, and satisfying little subversions that keep landing in the moment. A lot of the fun comes from how effortlessly cool it feels, without that desperate, look how cool we are energy some films can't shake. There's a smooth heist movie confidence here that brings to mind the silky rhythm of something like Ocean's 11, 2001, and it also scratches that charming, thiefy itch that's been lingering since the Sly Cooper feature never happened. Is it quite as lightning in a bottle as its predecessor? Maybe not. But it's close, and more importantly, it earns its place as a worthy sequel. It's one of DreamWorks' stronger animated outings, not necessarily an all-time top-tier entry, but it's hovering near that conversation. Chief Luggins, still skeptical, still stubborn, starts to recognize that talent doesn't disappear just because someone's trying to change. There's even a hint that their criminal competence could be useful for something bigger down the road. A covert operation angle for a future sequel? Honestly, not a bad idea. Visually, the sequel holds on to the signature look of the first film, but it pushes the style harder. The color palette is bolder, the compositions feel more graphic, and certain moments dip into 2D hand-drawn animation for extra expression, like the movie briefly becomes a moving sketchbook when emotion spike or danger tightens the room. It gives the action and character beats a punchier, more comic panel comes alive energy. The chase scenes stay smooth and kinetic, and the set pieces are staged in a way that keeps your eyes moving without losing clarity. One of the most surprising parts is how the story refuses to be simple just because it's family-friendly. Compared to the first movie, the heist mechanics are more layered, more misdirection, more traps, more moments where you're not sure who's playing who. The writers put the crew in genuinely tricky moral situations, not just, do we steal or not, but, what does redemption cost when the world won't forgive you, and, how far can you bend your values before you snap back into your old self? Those choices give the characters more depth and keep the plot from feeling like a retread. The sequel also leans harder into relationship drama. It's not just one romantic thread, it's practically two. There's a secretive, high-pressure relationship involving Wolf, kept under wraps for reasons that make the stakes feel personal, and there's another romance that complicates loyalty within the crew, especially when connections blur the line between enemy and someone you care about. Yeah, the movie doesn't exactly drown us in on-screen kisses, there are a handful, and each one feels like it ends 2 seconds too soon, but when they do happen? Instant heartbeat upgrade. Maximum shipping satisfaction. Stacked up against the first film, I'd call it a draw. They each bring something different to the table, and this sequel clearly knows where it came from. The storytelling rhythms and even some of the shot choices echo the original in a way that hits like a nostalgia wave, same winning blueprint, same familiar energy, the kind that quietly screams, we remember why you loved this. The heist moments are still a highlight, too, and the film enjoys messing with the audience a bit, like it's daring you to keep up while the bad guys show off just how slick they can be. This time around, it leans more into moving the bigger plot forward, which makes sense even if it occasionally stings. And wow, poor governor. Someone get that person a break and a very long vacation. That said, a few scenes ask you to leave logic at the door, especially the helicopter chasing a rocket. I'm sorry, what? I know the sheriff is a beast, but a helicopter casually keeping pace with a rocket is the kind of cartoon physics that made me pause, laugh, and then immediately begin composing a complaint in my head. I'll award it 100 points for bold nonsense and subtract 50 points for pretending the laws of motion don't exist. And then there's the big kitty with the glow-in-the-dark eyes, honestly? I'm a fan. As the main villain, she has real presence, and the way she turns on her crew at the worst possible moment is one of the film's sharpest punches. That said, my immediate reaction after the sequel was, unfortunately, meh. I hate when that happens, especially because the first Bad Guys movie was solid for me. I'd put it around a 6/10, which is comfortably above average in my personal scale. And early on, this sequel seemed like it might match that. The setup is genuinely promising, they're trying to go straight, and what better way to prove it than catching the real criminal responsible for the mess they're being blamed for? But then it starts wobbling. The plan gets messy, the framing angle takes over, and the story begins slipping into, wait, why are we doing this, territory. By the middle, it felt like it went from neck and neck with the first, to below-average sequel that's coasting on familiarity. It still has laughs and style, but the plot loses some bite just when it needs to tighten up. If you want, I can also make it shorter and punchier, TikTok/YouTube style voiceover, rewrite it as a clean, spoiler-light review, or keep everything but change the tone to more comedic or more serious. Acting and voice cast: Sam Rockwell, good to very good. He's basically weaponizing charisma here. He makes the big bad wolf feel like a real crew leader, confident, smooth, and oddly likable. His chemistry with the ensemble gives the group energy even when the script plays it safe. Mark Maron, pretty good to good, solid timing, fits naturally with the group dynamic. Awkwafina, pretty good to good. Strong presence, good rhythm with the team. Craig Robinson, pretty good to good, leans comedic, but it works. he keeps scenes lively without feeling like he's in a different movie. Anthony Ramos, pretty good to good, dependable and easy to root for, especially in the group scenes. Zazie Beetz, good, really sharp chemistry with Rockwell and gives the Fox character a spark that makes her scenes pop. Danielle Brooks, pretty good, a fun villain energy, committed and entertaining. Natasha Lyonn, pretty good, great villain flavor, and the interplay with Snake is a highlight. Maria Bakalova, decent to pretty good. Works well enough, not the standout, but never distracting. Alex Borstein, pretty good to good, brings a reliable punch to the role. Rest of the cast, pretty good to good. The big win is chemistry. The group feels like a crew, which is the secret sauce for a heist story. Music and sound score, pretty good. It does its job well, sells the caper mood and keeps the movie feeling fast, slick, and playful. Soundtrack, pretty bad. It has that studio-picked playlist vibe, like someone tried to prove they're cool by tossing in pop choices that already feel a few years late. Sound design, good, punchy and clean, especially in action beats. Craft and presentation editing, good to very good. The pace stays snappy, and the edits help the film feel stylish, especially when paired with shifts in animation approach. Animation, great. The hybrid 2D/3D look is the real feast. It shows how expressive this style can be, lively, bold, and built for momentum. Pacing, about right, short runtime, quick movement, rarely drags. Tone, absolutely an animated heist for every eye. It's light, energetic, and designed to be fun whether you're 8 or 38. Story and writing notes. The premise is strong, a notorious crew of ex-cons trying to figure out normal life after an unplanned retirement from crime, only to get tangled right back into a messy network of lies and criminal chaos. That setup has room for sharper character work and more layered choices, but the writing often goes for the simplest route instead of squeezing the premise for all it's worth. There's still plenty to enjoy, the fun is real, and the visuals carry a lot of the excitement. But the characters and plot didn't consistently hit that extra gear I was hoping for. At times it feels like it chooses clean and predictable over bold and surprising, even when it's teasing you that something wilder is coming. That said, the space shuttle launch/takeoff sequence is fantastic, the clear highlight. It's the moment where the movie's energy, style, and spectacle all lock together. This time, our retired, reformed rogues get yanked back into the game for a one-last-job situation, except the twist is they're not calling the shots alone. A high-skilled, all-female crew enters the picture, and the dynamic instantly adds spark, new rivalries, uneasy teamwork, and that constant, "are we being played?" tension that great heist stories live on. Mr. Wolf, Sam Rockwell, is still the magnetic center, equal parts charm and internal conflict, trying to stay on the straight and narrow while the universe keeps sliding him a mask and a mission dossier. He reluctantly agrees to the job, and from there the movie doesn't walk, it sprints, throwing one stylish set piece after another like it's daring you to blink. And the villains? Their master plan is gloriously ridiculous in the best way, big, shiny, dramatic, and packed with turns that keep both kids and adults leaning forward. It's the kind of cartoon evil that feels like it's winking at you while it sets off fireworks, flashy, theatrical, and just clever enough to keep the suspense humming without getting heavy. Where the bad guys 2 really wins is in its rhythm. The banter is quick and confident, the comedy lands with clean timing, and the film keeps tossing out clever visual jokes that reward attention. It's got that heist movie DNA, slick misdirection, double-cross energy, last-second reversals, yet it never stops feeling like its own animated beast. At points, the vibe feels like a classy caper movie collided with Saturday morning mayhem, and somehow it works. But under all the style, there's a subtle moral pulse that sneaks up on you. The story threads in themes of trust, redemption, and choosing who you want to be even when your past is louder than your intentions. It doesn't preach, it just lets the characters earn it through choices, mistakes, and moments of real connection. A special shout out to how the sequel handles character relationships. Mr. Wolf's emotional grounding, especially tied to Diane, gives the movie an unexpectedly sincere center. That bond adds weight without dragging the fun down, it's the glue holding the glitter together. The new crew brings fresh electricity, too. They're not just new faces, they're active chaos agents, confident, unpredictable, and genuinely entertaining whenever they're on screen. Instead of feeling like an add-on, they make the movie feel expanded, like the world just got bigger. Visually, it's a feast. The animation stays bold, sleek, and kinetic, with action scenes that are intense without becoming noise. The score punches at the right moments and keeps the momentum rolling like a perfectly timed chase sequence. Verdict: no, it doesn't rewrite the rules of sequels, but it doesn't need to. The Bad Guys 2 doubles down on what worked: stylish visuals, fast dialogue, lovable rogues, and a plot that moves like it's been rehearsing its escape route for months. The new characters inject fresh energy, the villainy is deliciously over the top, and the humor feels even more consistent this time around. Honestly, it's so fun and fired up it made me feel like I was watching something bigger than a superhero spectacle. Yeah, even Superman, even the Fantastic Four, and maybe both combined, because this one isn't just about power, it's about precision. Action-packed, slick, and surprisingly warm, with just enough moral backbone to stick the landing. Great movie. I'd watch it again tomorrow, too. DreamWorks tries its luck again, and The Bad Guys 2 mostly lands on its feet. The sequel resumes right where the first movie signs off, then stretches the sandbox with a few new faces and a storyline that feels different, even if the overall cadence still echoes the original. It moves along at a comfortable clip, never sluggish, never electrifying, but consistently watchable. The familiar crew, wolf, snake, shark, piranha, and tarantula, get modest growth beats that work well enough, even if none of it feels like a huge leap forward. The fresh characters add spice and bounce, though a little extra backstory would have made them feel less like fun add-ons and more like fully formed players in the world. Visually, it keeps that punchy, stylized swagger the first film had. The direction maintains a lively balance of action, jokes, and sincerity, and it knows how to keep the energy moving. The physical/visual comedy tends to hit cleanly, while some of the dialogue humor occasionally slips into kiddier than it needs to be territory, dulling the bite compared to the first outing. Where the movie really flexes is the animation and spectacle. The environments look sharp, the world building feels bigger, and the action set pieces stay snappy and easy to follow. The music does its job well too, pushing momentum and excitement without drowning out the scene. Theme-wise, it leans into friendship, trust, and teamwork in a straightforward, teen-friendly way. It's not aiming for deep soul-searching, but it does manage a couple of warm emotional notes, and the finale feels satisfyingly put together. That said, there's a competing problem baked into the whole concept. Once the bad guys stop being bad, the hook starts to wobble. This sequel tries to solve that by bending the story into knots, nudging the crew back toward trouble without fully committing, because they're still supposed to be the reformed heroes. The result can feel oddly circular, like their moral arc keeps restarting just so the title still makes sense. And the plot can get very MacGuffin heavy. The central thing everyone wants is literally called MacGuffinite, which tells you exactly how seriously the film expects you to take the mechanics. At one point they're on a rocket headed into space, and it's the kind of escalation that plays like the script shrugged and said, sure, why not? The rocket's owner is a company named Moon X, yes, really, which is either a cheeky wink or a groan depending on your tolerance for obvious naming gags. There are a few genuinely solid jokes scattered throughout, and some viewers will have a great time with the bright visuals and constant motion. A teen audience especially may enjoy it more than the first. But once the novelty fades, the characters still don't quite have that Toy Story/Shrek level stickiness. Likeable, sure, just not distinct enough to linger in your head for long after the credits. Bottom line, The Bad Guys 2 is a competent, good-looking follow-up with strong animation, energetic staging, and a friendly, easygoing heart. It doesn't reinvent the formula, and it sometimes gets tangled trying to make good guys behave badly again, but as a colorful, fast-moving sequel, it delivers enough fun to justify its existence. even if it's also the kind of movie that can vanish from your memory by the next day. But that idea is dropped almost immediately, leaving us with a safe, forgettable mishmash of spy clichés and heist movie leftovers. Visually, the animation suffers from the same identity crisis. During the fast-paced, Looney Tunes-style action sequences, the film comes alive but everything in between feels flat. The half 3D, half 2D aesthetic never commits to either direction, so it ends up feeling more like a compromise than a bold creative choice. In truth, Bad Guys 2 isn't unwatchable. But nothing here is going to set your world on fire either. The franchise might still have potential, but only if it embraces what makes it fun, letting the bad guys actually be bad. Push the animation style further, ditch the redemption loop, and lean into the chaos. That's the movie people might actually want to see. The first Bad Guys movie was cute and kid-friendly with an overall original idea. I was pleasantly surprised at the lack of objectionable content given that this is the same studio who put out the Shrek movies. Bad Guys 2 was a bit of a letdown. There was bad language, ongoing bathroom humor and some slightly risque PDA between two characters. I could probably have tolerated the last two, but the additional, completely gratuitous, bad language pushed this over to the disappointment side for me. Well, you know that old saying about no good deed going unpunished. The guys are desperately trying to stay on the straight and narrow, but someone is out to set them up. Their only route to salvation would appear to be to give up their new shiny halos and start working with the dastardly Kitty Cat, who has a cunning plan to turn a spaceship into a giant magnet that can collect all the gold from the face of the planet. Even the burgeoning romance that might, or might not, be going on between Fox and Mayor Diane is unlikely to stop the police commissioner from getting them behind bars once again. They've got their work cut out for them, and as everyone knows, there's no one scorned like a cat in heels. It reminded me a bit of one of the early Mission Impossible films, with the emphasis on the gadgets and the scenarios, but not really on the characterizations. Aside from a little Wolf/Fox mischief, the whole thing just followed an all too predictable pattern of out-of-the-pan into-the-fire escapades that can only ever really lead to Bad Guys 3. The animation is great and there is plenty of action, but I wasn't overwhelmed by the originality of any of this, and I couldn't help but wish that they were just plain, out-and-out, bad again. All this goody-goody stuff changes the dynamic between the critters, and not in an enjoyable way. My own favorite, Tarantula, doesn't feature nearly enough, and there's also an awful lot of dialogue. I might just be desensitized to these animated crime capers now, but this just didn't do anything for me. Sorry. It hasn't been that long since The Bad Guys came out into theaters. Nevertheless, just 3 years later, The Bad Guys 2 has been released. Let's talk about it. This is an animated caper based on a children's book series written by Aaron Blabé. Since the events of the first one, Wolf and the gang of bad guys are trying to be good. Sadly, society is making it difficult, not giving them jobs or second chances. When a mysterious figure known as the Phantom Bandit frames the gang, they're pulled back into the dangerous high-octane life of thieves. I've just realized how similar these movies are to Despicable Me, at least the themes. Both are about how hard it could be to drastically change who you are, and how society sees you. Sadly, this theme gets sort of forgotten in this movie's action-packed finale. Don't get me wrong, the action is good, I was just looking for something a little deeper. Yes, I know this is a movie for kids, but still. There isn't much more to say about this one. Overall, The Bad Guys 2 is a solid sequel that has a cool animation style and great action scenes, but it needs a bit more character development and a bit less fart jokes. They set it up for more, hopefully people still care about these characters by then. One of the most genuinely charming parts of this animated sequel is the bond between Mr. Wolf and Diane.